6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Okay, we'll have a roll call. Director Smiley?
Here.
Director Gregory?
Here.
Director Calvin?
Present.
Director Davis?
Here.
Director Baker?
Here. Call for the approval of the regular meeting agenda. Motion. Motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, was the other right back. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Rise, right hand of your heart, veterans may salute, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is, public comment and communications for the items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to speak on a matter not on the agenda may be heard at this time. However, no action may be taken until placed on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Please sign in at the lectern. And with your name and address, please. So if you're wishing to speak, you can approach the lectern and speak. You just have to sign in and, yeah.
Okay, that works for me.
Yeah, sure, you're all set.
I just moved to San Miguel recently. I've had numerous problems on Mission Street. I've had people try to break into my house. I've had people steal things from my house. I've had numerous incidents of pedestrians getting hit in front of my house. The traffic and crime situation in this town is absolutely obscene. I'm ashamed that it's part of San Luis Obispo County. And I find it reprehensible that I look on your budget, you guys have spent over $572,000 in public safety, and there's no public safety here. I just would like to know what can be done to improve the crime situation here, and also what is being done to address the rampant speeding and street racing on Mission and L Streets. In addition to that, I also want to know, why is there going to be a water rate increase when currently our water is toxic, it has arsenic and uranium, boron, sulfate, and nitrate. I think if there's going to be a water rate increase, we should have better water quality. There's some of the worst water quality in San Luis Obispo County. And I guess that's it.
Can I get your name?
Brandon.
The last name?
Patterson.
Patterson?
Patterson.
Thank you.
Would the sheriff like to respond to his comment about?
Excuse me, Chair, I think maybe we could hear all the public.
Okay, then call the sheriff up. Okay, very good. All right. Okay, we'll have a response for you here in a few minutes, okay? All right, sorry about that. Okay, any other public comment?
Ground right here. Get to the trash can.
I want to step on it.
Any other public comment? If not, we'll move on to special presentations. San Miguel Community Services District Fiscal Year 2022-23 Financial Report by Adam QC and Moss and Navy and Hartsem, Sean. Recommended audit approval after presentation and discussion.
Hi, my name is Adam Geis. I'm the auditor, partner in charge of the audit for San Miguel C.S.D. From Moss Living and Hartstein. I'm based out of Santa Maria. And what you have here today are the audited financial statements of the district for the year ended June 30, 2023. We came out to the district in kind of a two-step process. We came out the first time and looked through the controls of the district, how payroll is processed, how checks are written, how receipts are taken in, tested the controls to see what was being done and if everybody was following the same procedures. And then we came back out a second time, got the year-end balances and got documentation and everything to try and substantiate those balances. So this report is kind of the final output from the audit process. And so I'm just going to go through and just kind of highlight a couple things. The first thing, pages 1 and 2, this is the auditor's opinion letter. And I just want to point out that this is an unmodified audit opinion. Basically that means as we went through the process, we were able to get all the documentation we need, and we were able to substantiate and agree with all the numbers that are presented here in the audit report. That is the best kind of audit opinion. The next few pages, pages 3 through 9, this is management discussion and analysis. This is an opportunity for management to kind of present their overview of the financial statements, include a little bit of comparison from year to year, which is not included in the regular financial statements, as well as include any kind of explanations that they wanted to include. I want to point out that this is new for this district last year. The section is considered mandatory by government standards, but there is no penalty for not including it. And just historically, the district has not done one. I know it was a comment before last year that they would like to see that done, and so it was done this year by the management of the district. And again, it's a good place to look for kind of a summary of the financials later on as well as some analysis. Into the meat of the financial statements, pages 10 through 14. Sorry. 11 through 21. And these are all the numbers of the district. The first couple statements, statement of net position and statement of activities. This is the entire district, so fire, street, water, wastewater, everything all combined. The fire and the street funds are the governmental activities. The water and wastewater are included in the business type activities. The distinction is the water and wastewater are driven primarily by charges for services, whereas the governmental activities is driven mostly by property tax, purchase, and other sources of funding. Page 12 and 13, statement of activities. This is kind of a high-level overview of the expenses and revenues of the district. I want to point out for governmental activities, so the street and fire fund, there was a positive change in net position of $61,000. For the business type activities, there's a positive change in net position of a little over $800,000. This means that the assets exceed the liabilities and to a larger degree than they did last year. So an increase in net position is a good sign of health of an organization. Pages 14 through 21, these are the fund financial statements. So these are breaking up the financial statements into each fund or activity of the district. For the governmental funds, so pages 14 and 16, this does not include the capital assets or long-term debt owned by the fire or street fund. So those are reported in the statement of net position earlier. For page 16, which is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Or for those of you familiar with business, this would be an income statement or profit and loss statement. When everything was all added up, on the fire fund, the expenditures and uses of funds exceeded the revenues by about $58,000. For the street lighting fund, the revenues exceeded the expenditures by about $76,000, for a total positive change in fund balance of about $18,000. A couple things reflected here: transfers into the fire fund, the $46,500 there. That was money moved in from other funds to help cover the cost of that was needed to bring the fire station up to code. So that was a little bit unusual this last year.
Excuse me, just quick.
Yeah,
What funds did that money come from?
that came from, I believe, all the other funds. So it came out of the street lighting fund, and then there's also transfers out from the wastewater and the water fund on page 19. Pages 18 through 21, these are the fund statements for the wastewater and the water funds. On page 19, there's a positive change in net position in the wastewater fund of about $673,000, and a positive change in the water fund of about $141,000. And this was including the transfers out that I just talked about, as well as the result of some capital contributions, some fixed assets removed from the wastewater and water fund to the fire fund, where they were better reflected because the assets were used for the fire fund. The next part of this financial statements is the notes to the financial statements. This kind of breaks out a lot of the balances that are presented earlier on. Page 27, 28, and 29, these show what kind of investments and where the cash of the district is located, albeit in different types of money market accounts or in the different types of investment funds. San Luis Obispo County Investment Pool is considered an investment fund rather than cash, so that's why it's reported with the investments. Page 30, this has a couple things I wanted to note. Note 3, interfund transactions. Here there was $44,669 that it was shown as a transfer in and transfer out between the wastewater and water fund. That was the old balance that was owed between the funds that was written off by the board action earlier this year. In order to actually clear that out of the financial statements, it has to be recorded as a transfer of funds, but actual cash was not moved. So I just wanted to point that out. Note 4 is the capital assets. So this is showing everything that happened in terms of vehicles, equipment, the plant and buildings of the district. The construction in progress. These are projects that were being done by the district that were not completed as of June 30th. So longer term construction projects get put into the construction in progress section. And then when they're completed, they would be transferred in down below to either buildings or equipment. And then that's when they would start depreciation. So that's just showing the value of work that's been done on current projects that were not completed as of June 30th. The next page, page 31, note 5, summarizes what happened in terms of all of the long-term liabilities of the district, compensated absences, the lease, notes, bonds, and then the employee-related costs for the retiree health benefits, that's other post-employment benefits, and then the net pension liability. The other post-employment benefits and net pension liability, these are long-term liabilities that are calculated based off of actuarials done. So they're trying to create a best estimate of what future costs are for all current retirees and all current employees of the district. So they take into account expected investment rate of return, how long employees are living, all that kind of stuff is kind of built into these calculations, and that's where those numbers come from. But what I want to point out here with the net pension liability in particular, there was a couple factors last year that led to the large increase in net pension liability. If you look at it, basically double, or a little bit more than double from what it was in the prior year. First, these are based off of a snapshot of investments at CalPERS in June of 2022. So the calculations done by CalPERS are a year behind. So as of June 2022, CalPERS investments were down quite a bit from what they had been the prior year, as well as lower than what their expectations had been. And then on a long-term basis, they decided that their expected rate of return on investments was a little too high. So they adjusted that expected rate of return down a little bit as well, which led to an increase in the liability also. So those two factors combined is what led to the large jump in the net pension liability. But again, this is a long-term calculation. So hopefully, as things smooth over the years, that can get into a better level. But it is subject to occasional jumps depending on what's going on with CalPERS and their investments. The next few notes kind of break down everything, payment schedules, amortization schedules for the bonds, the leases, as well as a lot more detail on the pension plans and retiree health benefits. I do want to point out one thing on page 36 for the pension plan. So I mentioned that CalPERS decided to lower their expected rate of return on investments that they use for their discount rate. They lowered it from 7.15% to 6.9%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look at the little chart that we have on the top of page 36, you can see that 1 percentage point change in the discount rate or expected return on investments almost doubles the liability of the district. So that was a large factor in the increase in liability costs. So going through all of that, I did want to point out towards the end of the financial statements what the pension cost in terms of actual cash out the door looks like. So if you go to page 46 all the way to the very end, so while the pension liability more than doubled during the year, these numbers on page 46 show it was actually paid in cold hard cash to CalPERS for retirees for the year. So it did increase from 74,000 to about 80,000, but that's fairly consistent with how it's been going up over the last 9 years since that was first required to be reported. I think that's pretty much it for what I wanted to highlight on the financial statements. The only other thing was there are a couple supplemental letters that go along with the audit. And we wanted to point out there was one finding that we reported in the audit process. And that was regarding payroll. We noted 2 instances, one of each, one where a time card wasn't signed by the supervisor. And that is something that we always look at because we really want to make sure that that's hit hard, because that's a good check to make sure that hours are getting reported properly, and there's a separate set of eyes that are looking at the payroll numbers and hours and making sure that everything's correct. So that is a recommendation, just to ensure that all time cards are checked and signed, just to prove that they were looked at. And then in one case, an employee for 1 hour vacation was incorrectly paid. And that, I believe it's a manual input into the system, and the pay rate got inputted at the incorrect rate. We happened to catch it going through, and that resulted in about $17 worth of change. So anyway, there is a district corrective action plan, just kind of how they want to address tightening things up. But everything else that we looked at in terms of payroll, disbursements, receipts, everything else looked like the controls were strong. I want to thank district management and finance staff for getting everything together for us. You know, they have their regular jobs and we come out and ask to look at all kinds of documentation, so I appreciate them getting everything all organized and making it go smooth. And so I'll turn it over to you guys for questions.
Comment?
Yeah, I got some questions. I don't know if for you or maybe we covered it. Just going back to those transfers in and out, so we did that 46,500 to the fire fund. I guess my question is, why would we do that? Because I'm looking at it, it shows they got a fund balance of $1.2 million, so it didn't seem like there was a need.
So the reasoning behind that was that at the time that occurred, all the departments were a party to that. So all the departments paid to rectify the code enforcement violation back to what it was basically when the building was built.
Okay, so that's when we had offices over there.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
It was also handled via resolutions. You could go back and research the resolution and find the history if you choose to.
No, that's good. I was just curious on all the transfers in and out of funds. It's a little bit new to me.
And to add on that, we actually came in about $10,000 to $12,000 under the projected budget. I think we were at $62,000 resolution. We came in short of that.
Another question I had was regarding page, I think it's 19. So we showed depreciation as an operating expense. And a government entity, I'm just kind of curious, because it's not an outflow of cash. For a business, we get to write that off. But I'm just wondering why that's recorded as an operating expense.
So, I mean, that is one of the main differences between the governmental funds and the proprietary. So the proprietary funds, because they're driven primarily by service fees, user fees, they're recorded similar to how a business records. Full accrual, capital assets are fully recorded in the assets of the funds, where they're not for the fire and the street fund. So what that's recognizing is these assets, there's a large expense to get these assets, but you're not getting the benefit of them in just that 1 year. Those are long-term assets that are going to last for quite a while.
I understand.
So rather than expense it just that 1 year, you're expensing it over time. So yes, that's not a cash cost, but it's...
Yeah, I see in the cash position, and it
Yes.
comes back in the
Yeah.
cash flow. Okay. I think the rest might come up later on other issues. So thank you.
The only question I had was the timeliness of the report. Is there a way that we could have received this a little sooner, a little faster? So the reason for delays maybe?
No, there really wasn't any real delay or anything this year. We came out in, second time we came out, was it beginning of October,
Yeah.
I think? Beginning of October, and then just getting everything together, getting it through proofing. And then this was the first board meeting that came out that it was ready for.
Okay, when do we normally get the reports? But is this customary to get them in December?
We, see, in 21, we did it in November. For 2020, we did it in October. 19, we did it in November. 18, we did it a year late, in the next March.
Okay,
So it's usually in the winter time.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it just wasn't quite ready for the meeting.
Okay, no, that's it. Thank you.
Anthony, you have something?
I have a question just so I can understand it a little bit
actually also a couple of questions. First off, from your own, from looking over the internal controls and everything else, you said that it was a modified opinion. So there was no evidence of malfeasance on the part of the district during any investigation of auditing.
Correct, yes.
I just want to make sure it's on the record because we've received a lot of statements from people saying that there's corruption, and a lot of people are bad-mouthing and spreading lies around the community, so I want to make sure from the auditor directly, the person who is licensed by the state of California, that in your own tests, that you did not see any of that.
And all of the tests that we did, it looked like the controls were being followed and the controls were strong.
Thank you.
Except for the one instance in payroll we did.
Now, for the payroll instance, that was the $17 one? Yeah.
That was the net result of it, yeah.
Okay. So, got it. Also, just for my own reading, because I'm actually public administration background, but this is a financial audit, and then there's another thing called a program audit. Do I use program-based metrics for auditing? Do you know anything about that?
Well, that would be, so with government agencies, it's typically, a program audit would be like something required for a specific grant.
Okay.
The big one is if you have over $750,000 federal funding expenditures, then you have to do a federal audit, which is compliance audit on those programs. Some other grants, you know, California and stuff require something specific for just that funding source. But this was just an overall financial audit.
Financial audit, okay. Just because also, if I understand correctly, program audits are, they check for the efficiency of departments or the whatever is being funded, correct? Is that?
Yes, and usually a lot more detail on a very specific set of funding expenses.
And then my last question regarding that, because this is my opinion, because you're here, I want to ask, how much do those actually cost, program audits? You know, are they like really expensive or how, you know?
Usually, I mean, what I'm talking about with specific funding source audits, usually aren't too much extra because they're usually part of the required financial audit at that point.
Okay.
Because you come out and do the financial audit and you also do the compliance tests of those programs. If you're talking about somebody coming in just to do a very detailed audit of internal control or something like that, then that could be quite costly depending on the time required.
Okay. Because I know that we've had conversations about efficiency of district operations, so that's kind of why I'm asking, you know, if that's something also to look at, if that's even you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that would be, that's not something that we do, we're a financial audit firm. But yeah, that would be the separate.
That's all I have at this moment. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Director Collins. Director Davis?
I don't have anything, but I thank you because I spent about 3 hours trying to read that, and I didn't know it was going to be sitting up here.
All my questions were answered. We sat down together that one day, and so I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. For the meeting. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Need a motion to accept it. Just
Need that public
comment.
public comment. Have public comment on this? Anybody? Approach the lectern. Okay, move on. All right, directors.
So let's put Kelly.
All right.
Sure.
San Luis Obispo County Organizations, County Sheriff.
We need a motion to do or not motion.
You need a motion?
Yeah, right here it says recommend audit approval.
Oh,
That's what I was looking for.
sorry.
All right. Okay, so I'm looking for an approval after a presentation and discussion. I'll move to approve.
Second.
That was Baker and Collins.
Yeah.
To approve resolution 2023-23 approving the San Miguel C.S.D. fiscal year 2022-23 fiscal audit. Motion by Director Baker, second by Director Collins. Vote. Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Davis?
Yes.
Director Gregory?
Yes.
Director Baker?
Yes.
President Smiley?
Yes.
Passes 5-0-0.
Now we'll move on to non-district reports, San Luis Obispo County organizations. Welcome.
Good evening, Michael Manuel, Commander, Sheriff Seymour Station. I have a report for November 2023. The station received 1,313 calls for service in November. Compared to last year, there were 2,051 calls for service. That's a drop of approximately 36%. San Miguel accounted for 175 calls for service. Compared to last year, there were 160 calls for service, an increase of about 9%. Compared to Shandon, 87 calls for service. From those calls for service, the station generated 318 reports. Compared to last year, there were 228 reports. That's about a 39% increase. San Miguel accounted for 48 reports. Compared to last year, 25, an increase of 92%. I found that kind of high. I looked into it. I couldn't determine exactly what the cause was, but there were a large number of supplemental reports, which are also counted in those numbers. Breaking those calls for service down into specific areas, assault and battery, 4 calls for service, generating 4 reports. We received a report of a battery resulting in the arrest of a subject for an arrest warrant. We had an altercation between a brother and a sister, and there were 2 domestic violence related calls for service. Disturbances, 21 calls for service, generating 3 reports. We had a domestic violence report, and we took a crime report related to loud music. Burglaries, there were 3 calls for service, generating 2 reports. We received a report of a subject attempting to break into a trailer. We arrived in the area. We searched the area. We located a subject that matched the description. That subject was arrested for public intoxication and possession of controlled substance. We had a victim come home and discover items missing from within the house. Thefts, there were 2 calls for service, generating 1 report. We had a report of parts stolen off a vehicle. I'll take this time to note that this is the time of year when thefts do increase. Make sure your vehicles are locked, make sure there is nothing in plain sight that would entice somebody to break windows, and don't leave packages on the front porch. When you go out of town, make sure your neighbors are watching your house and it doesn't look like you're out of town. Have somebody picking up the mail and the newspapers and anything else out there. We do see a significant increase in thefts this year. Vandalisms, we had 2 mailboxes damaged, and there was 1 vehicle tire that was slashed. Trespassing, 4 calls for service, phone scams. I will advise the public and the board that there's somebody out there, hackers, spoofing the sheriff's office phone number. And it looks like the call is coming from the sheriff's office, and it is actually our sheriff's office phone number, but it is not us calling. And the last one that I heard about,